Hello and welcome to Blue Army TV. I'm sitting here for Carlisle, beaten Boston 2-1 away from home in a game that was a lot more complicated than the first game against them this season. Although not really, because the first game we made it difficult for ourselves as well. We won 5-2, but that came with a story of being 3 up, them getting it back to 3-2 and then us going on and win. And in a very similar fashion, we made things complicated today. We weren't anywhere near the level of performance that we had against Eastleigh last week in front of the massive crowds. I actually think we played a lot worse than we did against Eastleigh, and I think most people would agree with that. And despite that, I'm a lot more happy about this result than I am with the last. It's 3 points away from home at the end of the day. Boston aren't a very good team. I think that's quite evident. We struggled against them because of our own kind of, just not really looking at it. There wasn't one thing that I could point at and say that's what's wrong. We just looked a bit lethargic, maybe a bit uninspired. It was a weird performance, and if it wasn't for 2 absolutely cracking goals by Harvey McAdam, I think I don't think we'd have lost that game in any situation, but we'd have been talking about 2 back-to-back draws. Thank God we've got the Morecambe Steven Gerrard in our team at the minute, because he only scores belters. There's no tap-ins for that boy. But yeah, I think for a start, I didn't actually get to watch the second half of it. The reason this video is delayed is because I've been in Sunderland, doing a running thing, so it's been difficult to get this video out, and it also meant that I missed a lot of the game. But what I will say is I listened to it. What parts I didn't watch I listened to, and it just sounded like nothing, which isn't what we're used to this season. There's always that fight, that spark, that bit of something in games, and it just didn't seem like we had that. And it's taken 2 brilliantly executed pieces of individual brilliance from Harvey McAdam, both from quite far out. I think both just roughly in the same area, just inside the box. And you could argue that we've worked both of those goals well. They're both cutbacks. They're not, like cleared crosses that he's scored a screamer from. They're cut back to him with the intention of him shooting, and he's shot and he's scored. So in a way, those phases of play have worked. But yeah, look, it just wasn't as good as we're used to. I was very worried for a large part of that game that, we'd come out of a fantastic run of games where we'd played most of the top teams all back to back, and we're top of the league. And then we had 2 easy games in Eastleigh and Boston. And if we'd have dropped points to both of those teams after beating teams like Forest Green, Southend, Scunthorpe, and you even combine that with the draw against Yeovil as well. You throw that in the mix as well. It'd have been disappointing to drop points to those teams, but today we haven't. And I don't really think there's too much complaining to be done. I will say this: I think the first goal, there are 3 people at blame for that goal. I think Cameron Harper and Hayden for allowing that chance to happen in the first place. I don't know what they were doing. It reminded me a bit of back in lockdown when Tottenham absolutely battered Man United and Harry Maguire kind of dragged down Luke Shaw, and it was the left back and the centre back that just weren't communicating well at all, and because of that lack of communication, Spurs managed to score. And it reminded me of that because they both were just getting in each other's way. They were almost grabbing each other, pulling each other away from the player, and he just turns them both and gets a shot off. And that's where the next part of the blame comes in Breeze. Now, it's not something that it's not something he's done a lot of, Breeze. I don't think. I think something he's really good at, whether you like him or not. One of his strengths has always been that even if he saves it, and even if he can't keep hold of it, he pushes it out wide, which is something that we didn't see with Harry Lewis or even Thomas Hawley. It's a real skill for a goalkeeper to be able to push the ball out wide when they make a save instead of back out into the middle. Into a dangerous area, and that's what it looked like with Breeze. That's what it looked like. I almost feel like he didn't mean to push it out at all. I think it was he went to catch it. And, you know, anyone that's played in nets will know this feeling when it bounces off your chest a bit earlier than you think it will, and it goes back through your arms, and you think, oh god, something's gone really badly wrong there. Look, it's an individual mistake. It's not something we're used to with him, but you know, you've got to give him a bit of blame there. With the other two as well, and it's so disappointing to concede immediately from kickoff after such a fantastic moment for Harvey McAdam, scoring a really good goal into the roof of net, because it really was, especially his first one. The second one was a good goal, but the first one in particular was fantastic. And to get that numbed almost immediately by John Lewis scoring at the other end, his name is a shop. It's just. It took a bit away from what should have been a really, really good moment for him. Luckily, he had that moment again later on in the game to win it and make sure that, you know, he was undoubtedly man of the match. But yeah, the takeaway from this game needs to be that we haven't played well, and we've won, and we've got 3 points. And come the end of the season, we won't look back at this game thinking, we didn't play particularly well. We'll look back at this game and look at it and say, that's a game we won. That's a game we won on the way to whatever we go on to achieve. It won't be looked upon badly, is what I'm trying to say. Although there are things to maybe take into the next game to be a little bit concerned about, to watch out for a bit. I think it's a little bit concerning that our forwards haven't been scoring recently. And even when they haven't been scoring, or they haven't been looking as fluid as recently, as, you know, we have been. Georgie Kelly needs to score more, I feel. I think that's two kind of... I don't even want to say bad games, because he doesn't really have a bad game. He brings the ball down well and feeds it wide, which is what his job is, I feel. But he misses, and he doesn't usually, but in these last two games, he's missed a lot of chances, particularly last week against Eastleigh. I do think he needs to, you know, as a number 9, he does everything else right, but at the end of the day, he is a number 9, he's there to score goals, and at the minute, he isn't doing it. He just isn't doing it. Whereas Luamba is, you know, Luamba maybe didn't look himself again today. Linney, you know, every so often he'll have a game like this where, you know, he'll score in back-to-back-to-back matches and then completely ghost in a game. I almost feel like with Linney, he values the games against the top teams a bit more, or the cup games, a bit like Harry McAdam used to. Sorry, that's a horrible comparison to make. Not that I'm comparing him at all to Harry McAdam, but there is one similarity in the way that they seem to get up more for big matches. You know, think of the hat-trick in the Reading game in the FA Cup. You know, big match, big crowd on the telly, and he comes out and he puts in an absolute superstar display, and maybe doesn't do as much in a game like this, where it's away from home. It's maybe not as high stakes. Now, look, he's scored a lot of goals this season, and I'm in no way am I criticising him or blaming him for not doing too much forward, but it's something to maybe keep an eye on. That, you know, you think to the Yeovil game, the Eastleigh game, you know, against the bottom half teams where you'd assume that he'd be absolutely fantastic and put about 4 past them. He doesn't seem to do that. Seems to get up a lot more for the big games, which, to be fair, you need players like that. But yeah, just something to think about. And again, I'll end it the same way I've kind of been rambling on the whole way. Bad game, good result, and that's what we'll take away from it. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to end this video by playing just a little bit of a song that I've seen recently, a Carlisle United song. I've been talking to the guys that made it on Instagram. This isn't like a paid partnership or anything along those lines, but it's just, I think it's nice to support kind of local things, and I think it is a fantastic song, which is, it's nice to see, and hopefully we get a bit more traction in the kind of Carlisle fan base. I'll put that down below. The Omelette Project is the group that produced it, and yeah, it's a fantastic song, so please check it out in the description. I'll put it in the comments as well, because it's a lot easier to put links in comment sections than in the descriptions. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and in a bit.